Hey everybody, welcome to Tuesday. I haven't done like a gaming culture video in a while. That's what this is going to be, kind of a big picture, hey, let's step back and look at this from 30,000 feet thing. If you want to see more in detail on Grand Theft Auto Trilogy, I was on Rich Masucci's stream, Review Tech USA, yesterday. It's always a good time being on Rich's stream, and we talked extensively about GTA. So if you want a more deep dive into the bad brain and the weird fingernails and a lot of the, they're calling it the most disastrous launch since Cyberpunk. Yikes. So head over to Rich's channel to see that stream. Again, I want to talk more holistic cultural stuff here. And of course, I went into the Xbox anniversary event with sort of nostalgia and a sense of history and community and all that stuff on my mind because of the Boss Fight Song of Sparkle Muffin crowdfund. 101 backers, Dalmatian number of backers, which is cool that 101 people want to be a part of what we're doing. When we hit the first stretch goal of $12,000, there will be a special announcement about enhancements to the game. We're already working on them. Yes, we're still developing while we're running this crowdfund with a very small indie team. We're cool and or nuts that way. But yeah, if you haven't backed and you're waiting because you think you still got time, your credit card's not going to be charged until the end of the campaign anyway. Get in there. And I'm glad you guys liked the Social Justice Warrior video yesterday. That was fun to make. I did skin my knee doing one. The falling wasn't the problem. It was falling on bare legs on industrial carpet that did me in. But I think this sort of community stuff is why the Xbox anniversary event left me disappointed. The corporate nature of the presentation bummed me out. And I think that may be because I went into the anniversary thing thinking about what Xbox was during sort of the heyday Xbox 360 era, where they were so dominant culturally in North America. And they created a new brand of gamer. I'm really surprised how many people don't know this. That whole bro gamer, that cool college frat boy gamer, not that we think college frat boys are cool, but you know what I mean? Like that different type of gamer was a construction of Xbox marketing, taking a page from what Sega did when it was, going up with the Mega Drive. The hell was it called? Genesis. God, blanked on that. Again, head to head against Nintendo, they were, improved graphics, for an older gamer. Nintendo's for kids stuff. Sega's a good stuff for discerning older players. And of course, the Mortal Kombat version with the blood codes was a big part of that. And Xbox sort of stepped that up. Instead of it being high school, early college, it was very straight up. Cool guys, you don't have to be a nerd to play games. In fact, we're all not nerds. You nerds. They eked out this new demographic to appeal to with video games. And it worked. I remember when the Xbox came out, and other people in games journalism were saying there's no way. It's North American. The Japanese have a lock on this. They know how to do it. They're going to have to throw so much money at this. It's never going to work. But Xbox carved a niche for itself in gaming, and they were so successful at branding that Xbox player, what became known as the X-Bro, that it painted all of gaming with that brush up until this day. You didn't hear the same stuff about gaming being terrible where women were concerned until that era. You did hear the violence argument. And it's interesting because that was the blood codes in Mortal Kombat and Resident Evil and stuff like that. Like that, every time some company tries to redefine gamers for marketing purposes, stick up the ass politicians use that branding to paint everybody with that brush. It's interesting how history keeps repeating itself that way. And now, fast forward to today, you see Microsoft struggling with that legacy. You see Rockstar Games apparently struggling with that legacy. Apparently there's a rule that you can't show the Confederate flag on Twitch. So, okay, that change, maybe that's outside of Rockstar's hands. But they really seem to be struggling with their past. And I hope... I'm not the biggest Rockstar Games fan. I do think they hold a particular corner of gaming that I think is actually very important, because Grand Theft Auto games, the other stuff they make, like Red Dead and the other, I always forget the other Rockstar games. I really liked LA Noire. It was flawed, but I enjoyed it overall. But, they have a player base of tens of millions of people, if not hundreds of millions of players. And they have this sensibility that I think is worth preserving while developing outward in other ways. Rockstar's for that Xbox 360 era gamer. It seems like what's happened, though, is instead of that era of gamer growing up and going, wow, we were really silly back then, the way The Rock did in the presentation, like Dwayne Johnson's there taking the piss out of himself. That was kind of what I was expecting from the rest of the thing. It ended up being the most effective marketing in the whole thing, because I really want to watch Red Notice, because you are very likable, Dwayne Johnson, and you are suddenly more huge than you were younger. I didn't realize how much smaller The Rock Dwayne Johnson was compared to current Dwayne Johnson. I don't know if that's camera tricks or what, but he made his younger self look small. Dude is so swole. But he's very charming, and I will watch his movie. But part of what made him so charming is he was making fun of that very stilted, obviously reading from prompter product launch thing he did with Bill Gates back in the day, and then snuck in a picture of himself in a fanny pack for good measure. I was expecting that more mature, able to laugh at younger self take from Xbox, because Game Pass is a legitimately viable product. I am a believer in Game Pass. I think Game Pass is the future of Xbox. And while, obviously the PS4, Xbox One, whatever era was not Xbox's finest moment, and they appear to be running a distant third in this current console generation. The Switch is sort of straddling. It's weird to talk about generations now because Nintendo has been an anomaly for a while, but Nintendo kind of runs its own race, right? Xboxes are in short supply too right now. I mean, the PS5 is the big story, right, with the shortages, but it's hard to get an Xbox too, like a new Xbox. But there's just this perception, right? Now, I don't think that really matters if they keep selling Game Pass subscriptions. And Game Pass is a product that solves the problem, which is what I was expecting them to focus on here, with a nostalgia trip, Go back and, remind people of Quantum Break, which, if they released a version without the TV episodes, would be a completely playable game. Like, that's a great thing for Game Pass. I mean, Alan Wake was a timed exclusive. The original Mass Effect was a timed exclusive. They snuck that in a few times. Cuphead was a lengthy timed exclusive for the Xbox. That's one of the games. That's what I used my Xbox for more than anything else, was Cuphead. You guys know I love that game. Stuff like Sunset Overdrive could get a second life on Game Pass. The graphics of that game mean they're still going to hold up because they were cartoony to begin with. I got a Mr. Fizzy in the background. I loved Sunset Overdrive, right? The Rare stuff, I mean, bring back Conquer, man, or just go back and play the old Conquer games. They were fun. They probably don't age well, but they were fun, and then Fable was almost nowhere to be seen. And then the Crimson Skies game, it was a historic flight simulator action game that when I bought my original Crystal Xbox, it came bundled with Fable and Crimson Skies. I love the shit out of both those games. The original Halo, I was not as enamored with. I loved Halo 2. Absolutely loved Halo 2. Halo 2 is still my absolute favorite Halo game, even though I recognize the Needler is overpowered. But it had the most enjoyable campaign of all of them to me. I felt like it was evolving, ironically. The story was progressing. The relationship between Chief and Arbiter took this really interesting turn. And then Bungie sort of lost its will to live working for Microsoft, and they phoned it in, and it just sort of, the plots of the games, not the gameplay, but the plots of the games just kind of took a shit, and they focused on multiplayer and the Forge and all that stuff, which are interesting technical achievements, but I never got the same, this feels good out of a Halo game after Halo 2. Gears 2 is still my favorite, I admit, but Gears 3 I enjoyed. The new Gears are not the old Gears. And again, the issue I have with the Gears franchise is it just seems to, instead of, we're Gears. In certain things, they are Gears. I give them absolute credit for keeping the couch co-op when Halo didn't. But that bromance feeling of Gears is not there anymore, and that's what I played Gears for. And I don't know, I just think the original Gears of War trilogy was that perfect Xbox game because of that. It was a bunch of guys, right? And brothers till the end, right? It was very much a brother thing, but they weren't assholes. Well, Baird was sometimes, but that was a shtick. It was three guys who were guys, but they were still good people. And that's why, to me, Gears is the Xbox franchise more than Halo was. Now, for me, I recognize that Halo is a massive cultural phenomenon, or it was. I remember those product launches. I remember those midnight launches. It was like a rock star had come to town, or like a hip hop star or something like that. It was madness. And that seemed to be what they leaned into with Xbox's history, with a bit of a side of the fat Duke controller. It was so much more they could have looked back on with wisdom, like the Kinect. Like they just kind of want to, I guess, forget that existed. But to me, these anniversary things are times to do what The Rock did. That's confidence, man. When he goes up there, like, what was I wearing? That was stupid. It doesn't make him seem less cool. It makes him seem more cool because it makes him feel confident where he is now. And that's what I was expecting from Xbox. And maybe that was an unrealistic expectation. But I think I'm remembering Xbox back in the day when, their marketing teams had a swagger that could get quite dickish at times. But as obnoxious as they could be, at least you always felt like you were part of something legitimately exciting. Even when they put us in those white plastic ponchos that one year and had Cirque du Soleil do a performance. That was, I think, the year that it was Project Natal became Connect, and it was all very strange, and everybody was like, what's going on? The shoulders lit up, and see, it would have been cool for them to kind of laugh at that. It would have been kind of cool to go down the whatever happened to franchises like this. Remember that little cat guy Blinks for the original Xbox? No, you probably don't, because those games are lost to the mists of time. The new Tomb Raider, yes, the first second Tomb Raider reboot was an Xbox timed exclusive. It was. But it seems like Xbox is trying to present a sanitized version of their history, featuring Halo, and more Halo. Oh, here's some other games. A documentary about, how the Xbox got developed, and a bunch of renegade guys at Microsoft. Oh, these are the cool guys at Microsoft, not the uncool guys at Microsoft, but the cool guys at Microsoft, right? But that, a Halo streaming show, Halo. Oh, here's a bunch of other games. Halo. But those other games, Sunset Overdrive, please, if you have Game Pass, discover Sunset Overdrive. Super fun game. Super fun game that did not get its due because it was a near launch title for the Xbox One. Super fun. I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite Xbox games of the whole cycle. Things like that. Things like Quantum Break without the TV bullshit. Because you could take that out and lose nothing. Because, dude, that's Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. And a dude that's on The Rookie right now. Was that Sean or Aaron Ashmore in Quantum Break? I don't remember. I hate that I forget. I think it was Sean. I don't know. I'll have to look that up now. One of the Ashmore guys. I love the Ashmore brothers. But I get confused about who was in what. Sean Ashmore was on Killjoys. Aaron Ashmore was in Lost Girl, I think. Well, they're side by side. You could totally tell them apart. But it's like, same name, looks similar. Anyway, check that out. Skip through the TV parts. Good game with the game parts. I would think they would use this to sell Game Pass, because Game Pass is good. Game Pass is excellent, especially for younger gamers who have a lot more time to play, but not as much disposable income. It's perfect for them to rediscover these older titles that are available in enhanced versions. I got very excited that the Fear titles are now available on Game Pass, because they're good games. I thought there'd be a lot more of that, but it was Halo, and Halo. Now, okay, these things do not come together overnight. When they originally conceived of this, I guess they thought Halo Infinite was going to be out. They decided to push Halo Infinite. But having the multiplayer beta available now, that's cool. That's cool for a lot of people. Why wasn't that always the plan to have it pre-launch? Maybe it was, but they were going to do a lot more Infinite hype. I don't know. It definitely felt like there was this big gaping hole in both content and enthusiasm because Infinite got pushed. Which was, again, weird to me because everybody knows Infinite is on the horizon. Infinite is one game. I mean, yes, the new Elder Scrolls, which is going to be Microsoft exclusive, is gonna be massive. That's gonna sell Game Pass subs. If it comes to Game Pass, it will eventually, I imagine. But that'll be huge. But it's that subscription service that they pushed it at E3, and I understand why. They've pushed it at other events, and I understand why. It's a good, viable product. I'm not sure what their marketing is telling them that I don't see. Because to me, Halo isn't the brand it was certainly when it was still Bungie, but also, even 2 games ago. The removing the couch co-op and trying to focus on esports style play really took the luster off of Halo as this cultural thing. Granted, things like Call of Duty and Fortnite came along too, and cannibalized some of that player base and gave Halo some competition in the multiplayer space. But that part of the problem is that last Halo series, man, I love Mike Cutler, but that show is terrible. It was just bad. And so when they announce a Halo show, I'm like, oh, they're trying that again, are they? I'm not sure why Xbox is clinging to this one brand when Game Pass it's like a high tide raises all boats kind of thing. The thing I love about Game Pass is it's not just good for Elder Scrolls or Fallout or Halo. It's good for small to medium tier studios that they can put their game on Game Pass and people can discover it and people can actually play it, and the visibility is worth something on those services. It's a win-win in that, gamers get access to this massive catalog of games that they can then sample for a fixed price. It's a great idea, and they seem to be making it work in a viable way. Of course, the prices are going to creep up. We all know that. I don't have a problem with that as long as it maintains a reasonable amount of value for the consumer. And I think it could go up a few dollars and still be a good value for that type of high volume, likes to sample, doesn't stick with any single game for a really long time. They like to bop around and sample and find one they really love and devour that, but real quick, and then they move on to the next one. The gamer I was 20 years ago, that's perfect for them. More 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I realized I was still on those PC RPGs. Yeah, I was still in my Western RPG phase on PC back then. But so 10, 15 years ago, that was me just burning through them. Next. Game Pass would be fantastic for me with that. Like, Game Pass, makes me feel even sillier about my Steam stack of shame. I bought all these games intending to play them because they were bundled and they were cheap, and then I just never played them. With Game Pass, it's like, hey, they're not sitting there staring me in the face that I bought them and haven't played them. They're just there whenever you want. I think it's a great idea. And this, to me, I repeat, would have been the perfect opportunity to remind people of how good some of these games from 10, 15 years ago still are. Ditto for the Grand Theft Auto trilogy. I think that era of Grand Theft Auto was, for the time, possibly the best games they've ever made, based on what they were able to do at the time and the type of stories they told and all that stuff. To me, it's gotten drearier since then. That era, that, San Andreas, Vice City, GTA 3, that era they managed to tell stories that had some meat to them, and I'm not talking about hot coffee mod, but had some meat to them, but still be kind of goofy and silly, and it's just started to feel more forced as the games have gotten more elegant, if that makes sense to me. I've always been more of a Saints Row fan anyway. I like the straight up farce in Saints Row as compared to that really cynical, legitimately satirical edge. But Grand Theft Auto tends to wallow in that stuff now, and in a way that feels very clashy with the gameplay, which is a drive around, fuck around, do whatever you want, go golfing, fly a plane, everything like that. I mean, that I don't know. I'm navel gazing on Grand Theft Auto right now. But they had an opportunity to represent older games for people who weren't playing at the time those older games came out, and they just blew it by shipping crap. And I don't get it, other than Rockstar secretly needing money. And if Rockstar needs money, holy shit, right? But I talked about this on Rich's stream yesterday. I'm not going to repeat myself. Anyway, curious about what you guys think about this gaming in general struggling to come to terms with its history. Because I think it happened, right? The bro gamer happened. Was it a construction? Yes. Did it become a cultural phenomenon? Yes. Are we past it? Thank God, yes. I don't know why we seem as a community, as an industry, to want to run from that time instead of doing what The Rock did and going, wow, we were real dumb back then. Isn't that funny? Like, wow, everything about that was stupid. And I can say that now because I'm like super cool and a big star. And so I can laugh at myself because look at me now. I'm huge in every way, right? That's what I think gaming should be doing. That's what I think Xbox should be doing. But I was talking to a friend of mine about this over lunch the other day, that this desire to sort of run from the 2000s and sort of the very performative masculinity of the 2000s. And it was interesting what he said is, you even admit to participating in that, you get canceled. And it's like, all right, good point. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? I think it's more productive if we look back at it and sort of laugh at it than, sweep it under the rug, pretend it never happened, because opinions of gaming and gamers now were molded by that era. To me, better to own it, laugh at how, immature it was in a lot of ways, and clearly created by a marketing team in others. And move on from that. Be like Dwayne Johnson. Do what Dwayne Johnson does, because Dwayne Johnson is very charming. Because he can laugh at himself. Gaming as an industry needs to learn how to laugh at itself better. And I think they're afraid of alienating a particular element of the consumer base. But the truth is, people who have matured out of the ex-bro phase and people who were never in the ex-bro phase and resent being associated with the ex-bro phase, I think that they'd all appreciate taking the piss out of that, because it deserves to have the piss taken out of it. It was just so fake even back then. So, all right, really interested in what you guys think of it. And don't forget to back Song of Sparkle Muffin on Kickstarter. Links in the description boxes. Thanks for watching. Ooh, shiny graphic.